Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video. Don't forget to drop like, subscribe, drop a comment. Love interacting with you guys. I wanted to do a quick shout out before we get started to Allison down at Oasis Tropical. She is always perfectly ready to answer any questions we have involving pets. And this is not sponsored or anything. It's just if we ever have any questions with any specific type of pets or procedures with our pets, herself and the other gentleman working there at the Oasis Tropicals are always more than happy to help us. If you've never been there, check it out. They're very knowledgeable and they have some pretty cute pets. So, without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started for today. And today is going to be what is a food forest? I'm sure you have heard me mention it many a times before. But we're going to go ahead and get in a little bit of depth. What is the true definition of a food forest? Uh, got our morning coffee. Without any further ado, we'll get going. So, to really talk about a food forest, first I would prefer to talk about what a forest is, and then we can, kind of migrate to a food forest because the theory is the same. So, a forest is an ecosystem that's been balanced, whether it be by man or mostly by nature. It generally, and basically you have animals eating on the forest. Um, you have your over canopy. So for your main shade, you have your secondary canopy, your herbaceous layer, your vine crawling layer. You have your ground cover. You also have dense rooters, so like things like where it kind of spears the ground and breaks up the ground really well. Of course, you generally have a mulch layer in some of these areas. It's going to be the base design for like a permaculture. I'm trying to think. I think that's the majority. Oh, and you also have your bushes as well. Um, that's really it. It's basically a balanced ecosystem. So you have things eating on that, and then those plants continuing to grow in harmony. And of course, you also have your mycelium and mushrooms. Um, so a food forest is that, but everything or the majority of everything is edible. That's really it. So like if we were to do it ourselves, and we are working on doing that here. It takes years, guys. It's not something you're going to do overnight. It's I hope you have 5 to 10 years because there are things you're going to plant that you're not going to be able to use in your lifetime, but maybe your kids or your kids' kids are going to have a well balanced ecosystem to get their food from, and that's kind of the joy in it. And of course, I'm starting a lot younger than some people are able to, but that just means more trees. We can plant more trees and maybe help solve some of the global warming that's happening. But anywho, basically, if we were to do something like this in a permaculture, do nothing farming, food forest, however you want to, say it, natural farming. These are all different techniques, by the way. They're pretty much related or very similar. Your over canopy is going to be very shady, very large growing trees. So things like that would be great nut trees, for example. Um, like an oak tree, it would do great. But in a food forest setting, we really want something that's going to produce food if we can. So a nut tree would be wonderful. Um, Things that are a little bit more aggressive in growth over time, and they get fairly large to where they can shade a very large area. Now then, excuse me, you have your secondary canopy. Your secondary canopy, believe it or not, is actually going to be your fruit trees. People don't realize that, but they're that's where they belong. They shouldn't just be standing out on their own. They're not going to produce as well. In nature, they would be the secondary canopy, and what that is, it's basically like you have, say, right here is where you have your nut trees, and then like kind of spaced in between you have one or two fruit trees just to kind of add a little bit extra shade but not hog all the shade. um, and then of course after that you would have your bushes. So for things like that, you're going to mix, kind of around, and we would use blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, a lot of the berries and stuff. uh, and then, of course, after that, you're going to have your herbaceous. So, for things like that, we would be doing our tomatoes and uh, bell peppers, peppers, corns, or no, sorry, not corns. Those are a little bit different area. Those are for more of the grassy, I feel. Personal preference, though. I could be wrong. And but basically, a lot of your not really grassy, but your herbaceous stuff. A lot of your veggies are going to be coming through there. Your eggplants, stuff like that. And then, of course, you are going to have grasses as well, and those can be things like lemongrass. I'm trying to think of some other good ones. Just basically grassy, very fibrous. Like I said, I would probably use corn, just because corn grows really well in mazes. So to me, it's kind of like a Johnson grass. But like I said, I could be wrong. Um, you're also going to have your vines. I think I forgot to mention those. And those are going to be your creepy crawlies, things that love to crawl up the trees and stuff. They would grow great under your shade trees and growing up your shade trees. Things like watermelons, cucumbers, grapes. Ooh, like I said, there's such a large list. Cantaloupes, pumpkins, all of those would actually grow really great in an environment like that. And then, of course, you also have your ground covers. Those can be edible clovers. They can technically be sweet potato vines. Strawberries, believe it or not, they're a very great ground cover. Things that are just going to kind of go across and mostly help keep that soil cool and suppress weeds. In terms of root crops, you could do sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, uh, sugar beets. I'm trying to think of some other good ones. Radishes, those are pretty good. You kind of help break up the ground. Um, and technically, some of those also qualify as cover crops as well. And then, of course, you have your mycelium, your mushrooms. So you could grow wine caps, lion's mane, oyster mushrooms. There's a billion different types of mushrooms, some edible, some not. All for your own purpose. I would like to put, and eventually, once we get the mulch layers and stuff in, we will be adding different types of mycelium so that way the mushrooms that we have out there will actually become edible, which would be nice because as y'all have seen, and if you haven't seen them, go ahead and stop this video, check out some of our updates here lately. We've had a boost in mycelium growth, and it is just taking over the garden. It's so wonderful, but we would really like to be able to eat those mushrooms at some point without any risk of poison or anything. So starting out, we're going to go with very easy, identifiable stuff, especially in a nature, based garden. So wine caps are huge. They're very easy to identify, and they're a great beginner. And so are oyster mushrooms. So we may do some shiitakes or something, but those will be a little bit more controlled environments, things like that. So, but that's pretty much what a food forest is. Like I said, it's basically just taking a forest concept and making it to where everything or mostly everything is going to be edible. Your herbaceous could also be stuff like your herbs, herbaceous. Technically, your vines can also be ground covers. Really, that's the beauty. It's up to you to design and decide what you want to do. How sustainable is this going to be in the future? And you don't have to keep things in certain areas. Now, your trees, your bushes, stuff like that, you're going to have to kind of keep those in a very specific area. So you're going to want to get those done right the first time. But I mean, if not, you could always kind of, start growing it and trimming it in a way that it grows, a little bit more beneficial for what you need. Maybe it needs to grow a little bit more to the left to get more sunlight, whatever really it is. And but knowing your plot is going to be half the battle, I feel. Of course, we already started with the shade canopy in our garden. Uh, they're not edible, but that's fine. We have mesquite on one side and oak on the other. So the oak kind of helps shade our trees until they're established enough, and our bushes until they're established enough to go into the garden while they're still in pots. And then, of course, the mesquite, that's great cooking wood. So for us, we still get our purpose out of it. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment. I really hope you guys like this. I know it probably isn't too crazy entertaining, but scientifically speaking, that's pretty accurate. And like I said, it's just a system that's going to be able to take care of itself in the long run. We've went from watering our garden from 3 hours a day to about 15-30 minutes a day. That's a drastic change in environment, just from adding our mulch layer and letting our mycelium get established. So we'll go ahead and see you guys in the next video. I really hope you enjoyed this one. And be kind out there. Have a great day. Peace, guys.